Here's Justin. He's Subticon attack and he's stake on.
What? Motor Master.
Try me, little rat.
Okay, so that was 87 renders animation, and it was absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend. Okay, so got a bit of a story for this one. This was originally what the build was going to be, is Mara Al Utha, who is one of the Transformer Quintessons from season 3 onwards. I think the Quintessons came into it. They weren't characters before then, they were introduced via the 1986 movie. And Mara Al Utha is one of the few named Quintessons. He actually came about during a specific episode called Madman's Paradise. He was banned for using magic. Pretty original stuff. And this episode in particular is priceless because it infamously has Grimlock, the giant T-Rex robot, wearing his apron and a bow tie because they're a peace delegation. And yet Daniel manages to kick a cog so hard that it defies the laws of physics, pushes open a secret latch that otherwise guides them to this crazy dimension. Pretending to be a red wizard here. So he pretends to be a human, and this actual tale here is brilliant. As he's regaling this story here, he's telling it all in his own perspective, but the visuals are telling a different story. It's actually brilliantly directed and well done, so whoever wrote this episode did a brilliant job.
Through a strange red circle.
That's how we got here.
Of course, he was not really a wizard then, merely a dabbler. He was taught his craft by the former ruler of Mononia, the Golden One. Indeed, he was the master's favorite pupil, always impressing the Golden One with some remarkable new skill. But one terrible day, tragedy struck. The Golden One vanished mysteriously. There was only one thing the Red Wizard could do: rule Mononia in the Golden One's place. The wizard brought centuries of prosperity and peace to our land, yet some were jealous of his power. And so the attacks began. Malcontents of all Mononia's races joined forces to seize the throne for themselves. You, mighty Grimlock, could help the Red Wizard to preserve the kingdom.
So I'm not doing an actual video on Mara Al Utha in particular here. I did a sketch, as you can see there, as a preliminary type of sketch, and I was going to start scratch building Mara Al Utha, this Quintesson character. But I hit snags along the way. Not every scratch build I make turns out perfect every time. It's usually quite a challenging affair, and sometimes you don't always crack the nut. I mean, to some people it probably would have been a good enough build, but for my own standards, I didn't like where it was going, and so I gave up on the project halfway through. But here's what I did. So I took and cut up some card, and took some 2-part epoxy putty, the Milliput, and started sculpting it around his eyes to create the pattern around his eyes. I don't know what you would call it. It's part of his aesthetic. But as you can see, it doesn't quite look like the original character that we had there. I also tried sculpting a smaller version and wasn't happy with that either, as you can kind of see there. But this isn't the only failed sculpt or attempt at, had a few attempts at making heads, and this is the result of some of them. You can see there's a single visor head there, and that was an attempt at making a version of Jazz. But not quite like the original Jazz, it was my own take on it. Ended up doing nothing with it. And, oh yeah, the yellow head here, that was an attempt at making Omega Supreme. I was going to make him a giant parts former, much like the original, but more so, but it was too big a project to really get off the ground, and my skills weren't quite there yet, so it was one of those ones that got canned. But I did manage to sculpt the head. The idea is to take all these heads and amalgamate them into a single build project. So that's what I was aiming to do from here on out. This is what it essentially amounted into. So I took the base, one of the bases that I've made, just using the same method as what I used in the industrial bases video. So it's a series of panels just on a piece of cut card, and you can actually see there's some cable ties in there as well, just to give it a bit of texture and detail. And I've literally just piled all the heads all in the middle there, just holding them together with super glue and hot glue, and thrown in a whole host of sliced wires, and then weathered and painted them. And I've used a few different techniques here, just my usual burnt sienna and burnt umber to make the different kind of browns of the rust. Also used a bit of a kind of a chipping effect by going back over it with a wet brush to take off the paint again, which creates a kind of scratched aesthetic on certain parts, which is what I did on the yellow head there, because it was originally all covered in brown, and then I went back onto it and scratched off the parts just using the watered down brush. Now on the larger Quintesson head there, you can see on the corners I've used a really dark brown, and then just to contrast that, on the very tips of the edges I've used bright silver, just to create a little bit more of the illusion of wear and tear. And the hopes is with this base, now that it's all being fully constructed and fully erected, is that it will be a base for a new Transformers project. I've got a few characters in mind that I'd like to try and make, potentially one of the cassette bots, because there's actually been quite a fair number of them that have featured in the cartoon as well as the comics. But more importantly, there's actually characters that you wouldn't even know were cassette bots, and I'll be doing a video on that. There was one which was an Autobot in a particular episode. I'm going to be doing a video on him, so I might have him standing over, use this base for mounting him on top of. So he'll be standing on top of the pile with gun in hand, and I'll do a bit more of a background video on that character. But unfortunately I won't be doing a video on Mara Al Utha. This is as close as I'll get to it, because, well, until my skills get a lot better, in which case I'll maybe just do a generic Quintesson video. But hopefully this is kind of giving you a little bit of lore. There's really not much here elsewise in this video to really go over, but I hope it's at least been informative and entertaining, and it just kind of shows you that your projects that don't necessarily turn out well, you can still recover them in some ways and use them for other unplanned projects. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more. Cheerio.